Lila had always known a world of silence. At 16 years old, she had learned to navigate the world without sound in a way that was uniquely hers. While many others took for granted the bustling noises around them, the hum of conversation, the distant chatter of friends, the laughter of children playing, Lila's world was still. It was quiet. It was her normal. The silence was not a burden for her. It was a part of her identity, woven into the fabric of her life. Growing up deaf in a world designed for those who could hear had its challenges, but Lila was resilient. She had adapted. She learned to read lips, to observe gestures, to focus on body language and facial expressions. In a way, her lack of hearing had sharpened her senses in other areas. She had an acute awareness of her surroundings, of the smallest movements, of the hidden emotions in the faces of those around her. On this particular day, the sun was bright and the park was filled with the warm golden light of late afternoon. The park was a small haven of greenery amidst the concrete jungle of the city, a place where people came to relax, walk their dogs, or enjoy a peaceful moment. Lila loved to come here, to escape from the noise of the world and find solace in the stillness of nature. The rustling of leaves, the chirping of birds, and the occasional whisper of a breeze through the trees were the only sounds she truly appreciated. Lila walked along the winding path, her eyes scanning the world in her own way. She wasn't a person who needed constant stimulation. Her mind often wandered in peaceful reflection. The steady rhythm of her footsteps echoed softly in her own mind as she passed the fountain in the center of the park. It was a familiar spot, one where she often took a seat to watch the water cascade from the sculpted stone, creating ripples that spread out into the pond below. As she walked past, something on the ground caught her attention. At first, it was just a flicker of movement, something different among the usual stillness of the park. There, near a bench under the shade of a large oak tree, lay a wallet. It wasn't the usual worn, beaten-up wallet one might find on the street. No, this one was pristine, sleek, leather, and obviously expensive. The dark brown leather gleamed in the sunlight, its texture rich and smooth, a stark contrast to the concrete path beneath it. Without a second thought, Lila bent down to pick it up. Her fingers brushed over the smooth surface, and she could feel the coolness of the leather against her skin. She glanced around, wondering if anyone had noticed the wallet drop. There were a few people scattered around the park, an elderly couple on a bench, a mother chasing after her toddler, a man walking, his dog, but no one seemed to be looking for anything. No one seemed to notice the wallet at all. Lila's fingers hovered over the clasp of the wallet for a moment, unsure of what to do. She had no intention of keeping it. Her parents had taught her from a young age the importance of honesty, of doing the right thing, no matter what. Her father, who was also deaf, had always emphasized the value of integrity. "You don't need to hear to know what's right," he often said. "The truth speaks for itself." With that principle guiding her, Lila opened the wallet to look for identification. She knew that if she could find the owner's contact details, she could return it to them without delay. As she flipped it open, she saw several credit cards, neatly stacked in one compartment and a few bills in another. A business card tucked into the wallet caught her eye. It was a name, printed in crisp, elegant letters, Serena Harper. Lila stared at the card for a moment, her eyes tracing the name. She didn't recognize it at first, but as she scanned the rest of the wallet, she saw the kind of wealth that Serena Harper was associated with. The gold cards, the cash in neat folds, all signs of someone with a comfortable, luxurious life. Lila thought briefly of how people like Serena Harper lived in a world so different from her own. She wasn't envious, but she understood that. Wealth came with privileges that she could only dream of having. But at that moment, Lila wasn't concerned with Serena's wealth. What mattered was returning the wallet. Serena had lost something important, and Lila wasn't the kind of person to ignore it. The wallet was a symbol of trust. Trust in humanity, in doing the right thing. Lila stood up, holding the wallet in her hands, and surveyed the park once more. It was then that she decided to find Serena and return the wallet. She knew it wouldn't be easy. What were the chances of finding the right person in a crowd? But she couldn't leave the wallet behind, not when it was so clear that it belonged to someone who would be missing it. As she walked through the park, she thought about how her actions, though small, could make a difference. In a world filled with noise, her silent act of kindness would speak volumes. Lila moved quickly through the park, her thoughts racing as she searched for the woman whose wallet she had found. She had never anticipated something like this happening. In her quiet, predictable life, finding a lost wallet wasn't something that happened every day. But now, with the name Serena Harper printed neatly on the business card she had seen inside, it felt like the universe was giving her a sign, a strange invitation into a world she had never really considered. She walked briskly, her eyes scanning every person she passed, but it wasn't easy. People were scattered throughout the park, sitting on benches, strolling along the walking paths, and lounging under the trees. Some were talking on their phones, others were reading or chatting with friends. The park was full of life, yet Lila felt a sense of isolation. She was the only one with the secret of the lost wallet, and it weighed heavily on her. Lila had heard of Serena Harper before. She had seen her face in magazines, in the occasional headline, and during her rare appearances on the news. Serena wasn't just any woman. She was a well-known figure in the city. She was a successful businesswoman, a philanthropist, and a respected socialite. Lila often wondered what it would be like to live in a world like Serena's, where money seemed to pour effortlessly, where every event was glamorous, and where everything had a touch of elegance. It seemed so far removed from Lila's life in the quieter part of the city, a life filled with simple routines and modest pleasures. Lila's family wasn't poor, but they were far from wealthy. They lived in a modest apartment, and her mother worked as a nurse while her father taught at the local school. They were happy, but their lives were shaped by practicality rather than luxury. Serena Harper, on the other hand, seemed to live a different reality altogether. As Lila continued her search through the park, she wondered what Serena would be like in person. Would she be kind? Would she even notice a girl like Lila, someone so different from her own world? It wasn't easy to imagine. After walking for several minutes, Lila finally spotted a woman sitting on a bench near the park entrance. She looked like the kind of person who belonged to the world of Serena Harper. She was dressed in an impeccable navy blue suit, her posture upright and graceful. She had long, sleek brown hair that cascaded over her shoulders and was speaking into her phone with a calm, confident tone. She wore large sunglasses, which shielded her eyes from the sun, and had a handbag beside her that looked expensive. Everything about her screamed sophistication and wealth, but it was her expression that struck Lila the most. The woman's face held a kind of serene composure, as if she was used to being the center of attention, though there was a softness to her features that suggested warmth. Lila felt a flutter of nerves in her chest. She knew this was the woman, Serena Harper. It had to be. She was the only person in the park who looked like she might own such an elegant wallet. Her heart beat faster, and she hesitated for a moment, standing at a distance, unsure of how to approach. Lila wasn't used to interacting with strangers, especially not someone like Serena. She often felt invisible to people from different worlds, people who seemed so much more important, more polished, and more powerful. It was hard to imagine that someone like Serena would care about something as small as a lost wallet. But she couldn't keep the wallet. She had made a decision, and she had to follow through. Serena's name was on the business card, and that meant the wallet had to be returned. It was the right thing to do, no matter how out of place Lila might feel. Taking a deep breath, Lila walked forward. She tapped Serena gently on the shoulder, her hand slightly trembling from the nerves that had built up inside her. Serena turned, her surprised expression softening as she looked down at Lila. Lila felt a pang of anxiety as she held out the wallet. Serena's gaze flicked to the wallet, then back to Lila, and she seemed to study the girl for a moment. There was no judgment in Serena's eyes, no surprise at the sight of the girl standing before her. Instead, she gave a small, genuine smile. "Oh, thank you," Serena said, her voice warm and sincere. "I can't believe I dropped this." She reached out and took the wallet, holding it close to her chest as if relieved to have it back. Lila could see the faint lines of stress on Serena's face, as though the loss of the wallet had momentarily disrupted her composed world. But now, with it in her hands, Serena seemed to relax. Lila gave a shy smile, a small gesture of acknowledgement, but she didn't expect anything more. This was just a simple act of returning something lost, nothing extraordinary. Yet, as Serena held the wallet in her hands, she gazed back at Lila, with a look of gratitude that lingered longer than Lila expected. "Thank you again," Serena said, her voice softer now, as if there was a deeper layer to her gratitude. Most people would have just kept it. Her words caught Lila off guard. There was something genuine about them, as if Serena truly recognized the rare nature of Lila's honesty. Lila nodded, not knowing how to respond. She didn't need any praise for doing the right thing. But still, it felt good to be noticed, to be seen in a way that was different from how most people treated her, like a young girl from a quiet life, invisible in a world of luxury. But Lila was still unsure of what was coming next. Would Serena simply walk away as most people might? Or would this encounter be the start of something unexpected? Lila couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty that had settled in her chest. She had returned the wallet to the woman she believed was Serena Harper, and now it was done. There was a sense of accomplishment in doing the right thing, of being true to her values. Yet, a small part of her wondered if there was something more that could come from this brief encounter. As Serena turned her attention back to her phone, "Call!" Lila stood there for a moment, feeling the cool breeze brush across her face. She had done what was expected of her, the right thing. But something inside her stirred. She couldn't just walk away. There was no turning back now, not after the brief exchange between them. It was as if Serena's presence had made the simple act of returning a wallet feel almost monumental. Lila began to walk away, her footsteps slow and thoughtful. She felt the need to take one last look around, to fully commit to returning to her usual quiet life. The park was the same, full of life, yet somehow different now. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, and children ran past her, laughing and playing. It felt as though time was frozen, and she was the only one aware of the shift that had occurred in that brief moment when she handed over the wallet. But as Lila walked back down the path, she couldn't stop thinking about Serena. She wondered if Serena would have recognized the importance of the moment. Would she just forget about the lost wallet, as though it was nothing more than an inconvenience? Or would something in her be moved by the simple honesty of a stranger returning what was hers? Lila knew that, despite how small the act was in the grand scheme of things, it had still meant something. She wanted Serena to know that. She wanted Serena to realize that it wasn't just about the wallet. It was about trust, about believing in the goodness of others. But Lila wasn't sure if she could convey that without words. How could she explain to a woman who lived in a world so different from hers that a small act of kindness could change everything? A thought crossed Lila's mind, and for a moment, she hesitated. What if there was something more she could do? What if Serena was someone who would appreciate a small gesture? Someone who could see the value in a random act of kindness? As Lila glanced back over her shoulder, she saw that Serena was still sitting on the bench, her phone pressed to her ear, seemingly unaware of how much Lila had just wondered about her. Lila could feel the urge to approach Serena again. Perhaps she could offer more than just the wallet. Perhaps she could say something that would leave a lasting impression on this woman whose world seemed so far removed from her own. Yet, she didn't know how to approach it. What could she say? What would make Serena realize how much this moment meant to Lila? She decided to walk around the park once more. If she couldn't figure out how to express herself, she could at least try to find some clarity in the solitude of the park's paths. As she moved through the park, she couldn't help but notice the small details. The way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the smell of fresh grass on the breeze, the way people passed by in their own worlds, lost in their thoughts. Lila smiled to herself, knowing that, at least in this moment, she was alone with her thoughts. It was something she cherished, the stillness, the peace. Being deaf had always given her a different perspective on life, one where the world's noise didn't overwhelm her. She had learned to focus on the things that truly mattered, the honesty of actions, the strength of character, and the depth of human connection. But then, as she reached the far end of the park, something caught her eye. Serena had stood up from the bench and was walking toward the park's exit. For a moment, Lila wondered if she was leaving, heading off to some glamorous event or business meeting, her world slipping back into the fast-paced rhythm she was used to. And just like that, Lila felt a pang of longing. It wasn't for the life Serena led, but for the connection between them. A moment of interaction, however brief, that had been enough to spark something in Lila. She didn't want to lose that. Suddenly, Serena stopped walking and turned her head as if sensing someone watching her. Lila froze. For a moment, their eyes met across the park. Serena's expression softened, a small smile playing on her lips. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, but it held something more, something like recognition, as if she had noticed the silent bond between them, the connection that went beyond the simple exchange of a wallet. Lila's heart fluttered, and for a moment she stood still, unsure of what to do next. Should she walk up to Serena again? Make one final attempt to connect? To somehow express the emotions she couldn't put into words? Or should she simply leave it as it was, letting the brief encounter remain a fleeting, silent moment between two very different worlds? Before Lila could make up her mind, Serena turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the pavement, her steps purposeful. And just like that, the moment was over. But in Lila's heart, it lingered. She knew that sometimes the most meaningful connections didn't need to be spoken. As Lila made her way toward the park's exit, a quiet sense of peace settled over her. She had done the right thing, and that was enough. There was no need for more. Sometimes, doing the right thing was its own reward, and she could walk away knowing that Serena had recognized the goodness in her. Lila had expected the exchange to end as soon as Serena had accepted the wallet. She had handed it back, feeling a quiet satisfaction, sure that this would be the end of their brief interaction. Yet, as she stood there, watching Serena process the situation, something unexpected happened. It was subtle at first, a slight pause in Serena's demeanor as she held the wallet tightly to her chest, as if holding on to something more than just a misplaced item. Lila could see that Serena wasn't just thankful, but truly moved. The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken words. Lila didn't know how to respond. She had done what anyone would have done. She had returned a lost item. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was just the right thing to do. Yet, Serena's grateful expression suggested that this simple action meant more to her than Lila could have anticipated. "Thank you," Serena said again, her voice warmer than before, her smile genuine. "I can't believe I lost it. I've been so distracted lately." She adjusted her sunglasses and sat up straighter, as though the moment had forced her to pause and reassess what had just happened. It was clear from her voice that Serena wasn't just acknowledging the return of her wallet. There was a depth to her gratitude, as though this small, unexpected act of kindness had taken her by surprise. Lila nodded, her cheeks flushing slightly, unsure of what to say next. It felt strange to be standing there, receiving thanks for something so simple. She wasn't used to being the center of attention. She had never expected to be noticed in such a way, let alone by someone like Serena Harper. But as she looked into Serena's eyes, Lila could see something more, something that didn't need words. "You're very kind," Serena continued, her voice softer now. "Most people would have just kept it. But you didn't. You chose to do the right thing, and that means a lot to me." Lila's heart fluttered in her chest. Serena wasn't just saying polite words, she seemed to truly mean it. Lila hadn't realized how much it would affect her to hear such recognition. She had spent so much of her life moving through the world in silence, not seeking attention or praise. But this moment, this recognition, felt different. It wasn't about the wallet anymore. It was about the acknowledgement of her values, her integrity, and the quiet strength she had always carried within her. It was the first time someone had seen her in this way for who she truly was, rather than what she couldn't hear or what others might assume about her. Lila took a small step back, not knowing how to handle the emotions that were stirring inside her. She wasn't looking for praise. She wasn't used to compliments. But this felt different, and for the first time, Lila wondered if this brief encounter with a woman so different from her own world could somehow open up a new understanding. Serena seemed to sense Lila's hesitation. With a small smile, she reached into the wallet and pulled out a crisp, new $100 bill. "I want to give you a reward for your honesty," she said, extending the money toward Lila. "Please, take it. You've earned it." Lila froze, her eyes wide with surprise. She wasn't expecting money. She hadn't returned the wallet for any reward, especially not for something as large as $100. It was simply the right thing to do. She wanted to refuse the money, to say that she didn't need it, that the reward was in the satisfaction of knowing she had done something good. But the offer stood there before her, and she felt conflicted. Serena noticed Lila's hesitation and smiled, trying to ease her discomfort. "I insist," she said gently, her tone understanding. "You've done something that not many people would do, and I want to make sure you know how much I appreciate it." Lila stood there for a moment, torn. She had never been good at accepting things from others, especially not someone so far removed from her own world. But Serena's insistence felt sincere, and Lila realized that sometimes accepting a gift was part of the exchange. Serena had offered it as a way of showing her gratitude, and turning it down might hurt her feelings. After a long pause, Lila finally nodded and accepted the bill, though she couldn't bring herself to take her eyes off of Serena's face. It was a simple gesture, but it carried so much more weight than she could put into words. "Thank you," Lila said quietly, the words almost escaping her lips in a whisper. She hadn't expected this, but there was something about Serena's kindness that made her feel appreciated in a way she hadn't expected. Serena smiled again, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "You deserve it," she replied. "I'll never forget this." Lila didn't know how to explain it, but in that moment, something shifted. She had entered this park with the sole intention of returning a lost wallet, never imagining that the simple act would result in such a meaningful exchange. Serena's gratitude had opened a door to something she hadn't realized she needed, an acknowledgement of her character, of her kindness, and of her ability to stand out in the quiet way she moved through the world. As Lila turned to walk away, she felt a lightness in her heart. The world hadn't changed, but in this small, unassuming encounter, something inside her had. She wasn't just the deaf girl in the park anymore. She was someone who had made a difference, if only in one person's life. And that, in itself, felt like a reward far more valuable than anything money could buy. As Lila walked away from Serena, she felt a mixture of emotions. The $100 bill, still clutched in her hand, felt heavier than it should. It wasn't the money that bothered her. It was the sudden shift in her world. She had returned a lost wallet, a simple act of honesty, and yet it had turned into something far more complicated. Serena's gratitude, the insistence on a reward, and the recognition of Lila's actions had left her feeling conflicted. For once, she wasn't just the girl who navigated life quietly in her own world. Today, she had been seen. Lila's footsteps were slow, thoughtful, as she made her way through the park. She couldn't shake the image of Serena's face, the way she had smiled, genuinely grateful, and the warmth in her voice when she spoke about Lila's honesty. It wasn't just about the wallet. Serena had noticed something deeper, something in Lila that she hadn't even fully recognized in herself. The kindness, the integrity, the unspoken strength in returning the wallet. Serena had seen it all, and it had meant something. But with that recognition came the unexpected weight of the reward. Lila couldn't help but feel a slight discomfort as she held the money in her palm. She hadn't returned the wallet for any reward. She hadn't expected anything in return. She had done what was right because it was simply what she believed was the right thing to do. The idea of being rewarded for something so basic, so ingrained in her values, felt strange. It didn't sit well with her. She paused by a tree near the park's exit and stared at the $100 bill, the crisp paper between her fingers. In her quiet world, money didn't have the same value that it seemed to hold for others. She didn't need it, not in the way most people did. Lila's family was comfortable, though modest. Her mother worked hard as a nurse, and her father was a teacher. They were happy. They didn't have extravagant things, but they had enough. More importantly, they had each other. This money wasn't going to change her life. It wasn't going to make her feel different. Lila glanced back toward where Serena had been sitting on the bench. She had left, her presence slipping away as quietly as it had come. Serena's polished, elegant figure was now just a memory, fading into the background of the park's life. Lila wondered if she would ever see her again and what she would remember of this moment. Would she forget the girl who returned her wallet? Would it just be another fleeting interaction in a life filled with events and people far beyond Lila's reach? But in that moment, Lila realized something. Serena's gesture, the reward, wasn't about the money at all. It was about something more profound. Serena had given her a glimpse into a world she hadn't known she was missing, the world of recognition. The world where good deeds didn't go unnoticed, where kindness wasn't just expected but acknowledged. Serena had seen something in Lila, and that moment of recognition had made her feel like she mattered. She wasn't just a quiet, invisible girl. For once, she had been noticed for something good, something pure. It wasn't the money that had changed her. It was the acknowledgement. Serena's words had opened a door to something Lila had always quietly wished for, to be seen, to be appreciated. It wasn't about material wealth or status. It was about the quiet acknowledgement of a good deed, the appreciation of someone's character. Lila had always known who she was, but today, someone else had seen her too. That was a gift far more valuable than anything money could buy. As Lila turned the corner and left the park behind, the weight of the $100 bill still lingered in her hand, but it no longer felt like a burden. It was a symbol of the kindness that she had given and received in return. A reminder that sometimes doing the right thing was its own reward. But it was also a reminder that recognition, however small, could transform the way we see ourselves. She hadn't been seeking it, but in this quiet moment, she had found it. Lila tucked the bill into her pocket. She didn't need it now. She had everything she needed inside her, the strength, the integrity, and the quiet sense of purpose that guided her every day. And as she walked home, she felt a little lighter. The world had given her a glimpse of something beyond the silence, something worth pursuing. A deeper connection with others built on respect, understanding, and, above all, kindness. She didn't need to hear applause or be showered with rewards to know she had done something good. The feeling of being seen, of being valued for who she was enough. The world had, for one brief moment, recognized her for the person she had always known herself to be, and that made all the difference. Days passed after Lila's encounter with Serena Harper. Life returned to its usual rhythm for Lila. She went to school, spent time with her family, and moved through the world as she always had. Quietly, with purpose, and with little fanfare. The $100 bill remained tucked in the pocket of her jacket, forgotten for most of the time, a lingering reminder of an event that seemed so small in the grand scheme of things. It had been a fleeting encounter, a simple act of returning a wallet to a stranger, and yet, it felt like a turning point in her life. But as the days wore on, Lila began to think less about it. After all, it was just a lost wallet returned to its rightful owner. She didn't expect anything to come of it. That was until she received an envelope in the mail one morning. The envelope was elegant, thick, and had an embossed logo at the top. It was addressed to Lila Thompson, written in bold black ink. Lila's heart skipped a beat. She didn't recognize the sender, and the formality of the envelope immediately made her feel uneasy. It wasn't a bill, and it didn't look like a typical letter from a friend or family member. With a furrowed brow, she carefully tore open the envelope and pulled out a single letter. It was handwritten, in neat, elegant script that Lila instantly recognized. It was the same writing as the business card from Serena's wallet. Her breath caught in her throat. What could this be? Why was Serena writing to her? With trembling hands, Lila unfolded the letter and began to read. Dear Lila, I wanted to take a moment to thank you once again for returning my wallet last week. Your honesty and kindness meant more to me than I could possibly express. It's not often that I encounter people like you, people with integrity, who do the right thing simply because it's right. I truly admire that. I understand that you may have thought little of the gesture, but what you did was more than just returning an item. It reminded me of something important, that goodness exists in places I don't always expect to find it. In a world that often moves too fast, you took the time to stop and help a stranger. That's something that should be acknowledged. I'm writing to you today to offer you something I believe could make a difference in your life. Inside this envelope, you'll find an offer for a full scholarship to a prestigious school that I've supported for many years. The school offers a top-tier education in the arts, and I believe it could provide you with the opportunities you deserve to reach your full potential. This scholarship is not just a reward for returning my wallet, it's a recognition of the kindness you showed, the integrity you possess, and the person you are. I would be honored if you accepted this offer. Please let me know if you're interested. The decision is entirely yours, but know that I believe in your potential, and I want to offer you the chance to achieve great things. With my best wishes, Serena Harper Lila stared at the letter in disbelief. She read it over and over again, each time trying to understand what had just happened. A scholarship, a prestigious school. She had never even dreamed of such an opportunity. How could Serena, someone she barely knew, offer her something like this? The idea was incomprehensible. Lila sat on the edge of her bed, holding the letter tightly, her mind racing. The idea of attending a prestigious school, studying something she had always been passionate about, seemed so far out of reach. She had always accepted her modest life, always content with the simple joys she found in her quiet world. But this was different. Serena was offering her a chance to step into a world she had never considered, a world of opportunities and success. It felt too big, too unreal. But there was something else in the letter that Lila couldn't ignore. The message behind the offer. Serena wasn't just offering her money or a free education. She was offering Lila a chance to grow, to explore her potential in a way she had never thought possible. It was as if Serena believed in her, believed in something Lila had never truly seen in herself. The recognition Serena had given her was more than just a gesture. It was a lifeline, a chance to break free from the limitations she had always known. Lila didn't know what to think. Part of her wanted to accept the offer, to embrace the possibility of a different life, a life that might be more than just silent observation. But another part of her felt hesitant. Was she really the kind of person who could thrive in such an environment? Was she ready to leave behind the life she had always known? The questions swirled in her mind, and the weight of the decision felt overwhelming. As she sat there, holding the letter in her hands, Lila realized something important. This wasn't just about the scholarship. It was about the recognition, the acknowledgement of who she was and what she was capable of. Serena had seen her, not as a deaf girl, not as someone who was different, but as someone with potential. And that recognition was something Lila couldn't easily ignore. She took a deep breath and carefully folded the letter back up, tucking it into the envelope. This was just the beginning of something that could change the course of her life. Whether she accepted the scholarship or not, Lila knew one thing for sure. She was no longer invisible. Someone had seen her, truly seen her, and that had changed everything. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it seemed full of possibilities.